episode 3 of the Military Environmental Health Memories YouTube project. I hope to date you've enjoyed the two that we've done so far. So today is going to be a fantastic little session. I'm really looking forward to introducing our guest to you in a moment. But before we do that, let me make a request to everybody who's watching. So a lot of people watch as we actually go live on the stream. But what we've noticed is the vast majority of people watch live on YouTube later. Watch the recording on YouTube later on, which we're really grateful for. So thank you for that. What I would request, though, if you're watching this now on YouTube, before we proceed into the actual chat with our guest, can I just ask that you take a moment to subscribe to the channel, please, and click the alert button, and then it'll let you know when we've got future guests coming in, because it's really important for the YouTube algorithm that we get likes on the actual channel and that we get subscribers. Without that, it won't get the reach. So please engage. Let's move on then. So here we go. I'm going to introduce you now to our guest on episode 3, and it's a fella who will be known to many of you. In fact, most of you. Anybody who watches Crime Watch or has seen any of the criminal channels on the telly will be very much aware of our upcoming guest, a very long-standing friend of mine forever and ever, as you'll see as we go through this talk. And without further ado, I'm going to bring into the stream my old pal, Mr. Adrian Hippo Humphries. Grinner, hey, welcome to the show, my friend. And how are you doing? And I think, first of all, though, tell everyone where you're at, because you're not close to me anywhere near.
No, I'm not. I'm actually in a place called Winton in Southland, New Zealand. It's about 30 minutes from Invercargill, famous for Burt Munro, the motorcyclist. And it's just after 10 o'clock at night here in the middle of summer.
10 o'clock, brilliant stuff. Well, Grin, you know the form here, and the reason that we kicked this channel off was very, very straightforward. I'm not kicking us off on a sad note, but a lot of people are passing on. People that we know, people that we've served with, people who we've drank with, had laughs with, some we've cried with, and a lot of our old mates now are getting older and older. And this project was just kicked off, I guess, in a way, just to try and preserve a few of those memories. And I've been looking forward to yours in particular, not just because you've got an illustrious and decorated military career, which you do. You probably laugh at that, but you have. And but more importantly, it's the importance of preserving the memories that people like you and I have developed over the years. And I guess we can explore those memories as we go through. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw the floor open to you, Grinner, and just give us a bit of a resume, really, of your military career. Where it all kicked off, and really chuck in any little anecdotes that you like. And if you don't mind, as we go through, because I do know you so well, because we've literally been mates forever. If you don't mind, I might jump in every now and then and bring in a little anecdote. But the floor is yours, Hippo. Away you go, mate. Thank you.
Okay, so I suppose first off, I was a real disappointment to my family. All my family were Navy, and all my mother's family were Navy. I lived in Plymouth, so it was natural I joined the Navy. But I wanted to travel. I didn't want to be in Portsmouth. I'd been there once and I didn't like it. And I didn't want to be in Plymouth, where I was born. And I certainly didn't want to be in Ross Island, Scotland. So I joined the Army. And I was actually at the Army Selection Centre the day that Sheffield got hit by an Exocet. I think it was the 19th of May, 1982. Yeah. And quite an interesting time, actually. It's quite interesting to see how so many other people going for selection reacted. But after doing that at Deep Cut, I joined the Royal Army Medical Corps Apprentice College on the 7th of September. And I met Mr. Richard Wade as we were waiting to be vaccinated, or have something evil done to us anyway, smoking players number 6 to scrape off the floor of Nottingham and all that. And we did our time through ACOL. And then the environmental health card, originally I thought I was going to be an operating theatre technician, but I found out what they did and I didn't really fancy that job. I didn't want to be an MA, later a CMT. I wanted to have a trade. And it was actually you, Dick, that said to me, if you do environmental health, you get your driving license. And so my entire military career was centered on getting a driving license. So I thought at the time, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll go for that. And in fact, it's about 40 years to the day that we started our class 3. I think it was February 84.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, you know, it's a long time ago. And my main memories of the class 3 course, there was about 28 of us at the start, and I think 11 of us actually passed out at the end. So it was pretty hard yakka. And then we were down in the old model grounds by the School of Health, chopping up oil drums to make incinerators and stuff like that.
Remember it, yeah.
And yeah, Brian Hart came round with his clipboard and where did everybody want to be posted? And I think everybody had asked for Cyprus. And I can't remember if it was Nick Kettle might have said to me before, don't ask for Cyprus, it's a waste of time. 18 people have. But nobody's asked for Hong Kong. So I said, oh, I'd like to go to Hong Kong, not knowing anything much about Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And of course, being the only applicant, I got it. And after a stint of H&D at Depot, I was there for about 2 weeks. I flew out to Hong Kong and I was met at the airport by Rob Fingers Finley.
Oh, yeah.
Rest in peace, who died about 4 or 5 years ago. And it was pretty obvious who he was because he only had 2 fingers on one hand, and he came up and made me shake his hand to make sure I wasn't squeamish. And that was my introduction to Hong Kong. It was quite an interesting time. And I loved it there. The headquarters where we worked most of the time was down at HMS Tamar on Hong Kong Island.
Yeah.
And that was a 30-story skyscraper. We lived on the 18th, ate on the 17th, drank on the 16th, worked on the 14th. Yeah, and that was pretty cool. I learned to drive in Hong Kong because I'd unfortunately not managed to get my provisional driving license in time to spend a week in Leconfield.
Good.
I did a bit of time there with the Gurkhas as well, up at Gurkha Field Force.
Oh, nice. So, let me wind you back a little bit because I'm really interested to get your views on the class 3 course, because for me it was quite an eye opener. And I knew I'd wanted to go into health, whatever, blah blah blah, but it was actually quite intense, wasn't it? I know the kids nowadays they really go for it, but it shocked me. I won't lie to you.
Yeah,
you know, not the brightest cookie in the tree is old tricky. And
I agree with that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, a lot of people would. In fact, I've had it tattooed on the back of my head when I was asleep on the beach one night, drunk, thicko. Yeah, but it actually surprised me. All that there was a lot of studying, wasn't there? You were right, because you one of the brighter gang.
But I was lazy. So I mean, the thing is, you got to do the reading. You had people like Billy Meachin who'd learned verbatim the précis, and you had Dougie Rolfe who used to go to bed with his earphones in saying, a causative organ of meningitis is Neisseria meningitidis, and the incubation period is 2 to 10 days. And you know, so they did the hard moles. I think I relied a little bit on Common Dog, but it was hard. We used to have a 3-hour exam every Friday. And you had to answer, I think it's 4 out of 6.
Yeah,
and there were essay questions and maximum mark of 100. And it was tough.
It was long, and it was really quite intensive. And then of course you then I'm not sure if it took a week for the marks or whether it was ready by Monday, but you remember we used to sit in on the Monday afternoon waiting for it was terrifying. And of course I actually did. I flunked a couple of those, and off you go, marched around to see I think it was Dusty Miller at the time. That was frightening in itself. You know, little Jock McConkie shouting at you for being a thicko, and I already know I'm a thicko. Why are you shouting at me and telling me? So that was fascinating, but it was a good crack, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, and we worked hard and we played hard, and I mean, we still did military shit in between. We marched everywhere, and we did a fairly full-on exercise, I think, on that course. At the end of it, but that was the last thing before we qualified. And I remember it quite vividly how, you know, physically tough it was as well. PT and everything else, but no, it was good. It bonded you.
You hit a point. It was good bonding, and what I do recall, you know, we'd march around from A to B in our little squad. Well, the big squad initially that got smaller and smaller and smaller, and then of course we'd have briefcases, didn't we? So we used to have.
That's right. We all had briefcases.
I remember quite often people would be looking at us like, who the hell are those buggers with briefcases? But it was quite interesting. I don't know if that was done from a psychological perspective by the leaders that be, but it kind of made you think, yeah, this is all right. We did look smart, and we were quite a good unit. I think we were really lucky. We had by the end of our class 3 course, we had a good gang, didn't we? We had a good bunch of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I was racking my brains about some of the people who left, and we had Budgie Bird and Pete Kelly and Buggy Bones and Tiny Deans, big tall fella, and these were guys who started, of course. Sorry,
but little big Bob King, he was around as well for a while.
Bob, of course, he was on it as well, wasn't he? Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, we had a lot of people on it. Yeah, and and I think I got to about halfway through the course, and I thought, there's no way I'm not going to pass this course, because I'd have been so envious of everybody else on the course going around the world and doing cool stuff. And I think what stuck with me with environmental health, it is different from the trades and the medics, in that you have an amazing amount of influence over the well-being of an amazing number of people.
True.
And I'm not being derogative about any other trade and the medics. You're all heroes in my eyes with what you do, but we could drop the ball and an awful lot of people could die and get injured, whereas a medic might kill 1 or 2 people in a week, and we can all name medics who do that. But we had a lot of responsibility. And one thing I found, and funny enough, when I came to New Zealand, I did a bit of teaching for the New Zealand Defence Forces up in Linton, which is in Palmerston North, and also in Burnham in Christchurch. And I was talking about the authority you have as an environmental health person, and how in the second Gulf War that I was basically getting stuck in the quartermasters because their troops didn't have hand washing and stuff like that. And the Kiwi colonel, who was the chief instructor there, was horrified that anybody would tell an officer what to do. And I said, well, it's your job. And if you don't do your job, people get sick. So it's quite interesting. But no, it was fantastic. Class 3 was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah.
And I remember on my holding and drafting at Kiel, which was quite funny because of the 2 weeks before I flew to Hong Kong, I had to go around and count every blanket in the depot. and you understand why you go into a technical trade when you have to do all that shit.
It brings it home to you.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's roll forward. So we did the class 3 course. Off you go to Hong Kong. Hong
Kong was cool. I love living in HMS Tamworth. Different world, different idea.
Who was your team there, Grin? Who was
around?
Ken
Roberts was the staff sergeant. He was the boss. He was the EHI. Rob Fingers Finley. Nigel Kerr was up in the New Territories. Up with the Gurkhas. And Kev Butler came out as a class 2 while I was there as well.
Right.
And it was cool. Especially it was good if you were married. I wasn't, but if you were married, you used to get I think they called them Aya or something. It used to be like a house servant who'd do your washing and cleaning and all that, and you get a massive LOA allowance on top.
So that was
as a single. I mean, it was it's important to have extra money, because as a single man in Hong Kong, you had to buy a lot of beer, chase a lot of women, and it wasn't cheap.
It wasn't easy, mate. It wasn't easy.
No, so it was a dirty job, but I quite enjoyed doing it.
Did it well.
I spent about 4 or 5 months with the Gurkhas up at New Territories Group Practice as well. And a pretty standard day was swing fogging, WBGT, heat index, and generally going to do some training. I trained the Regimental Hygiene Duties course here for Gurkhas, which was interesting. And they're amazing soldiers, and they are decent people. And it was a real eye opener for me. But they had 3 infantry battalions there at the time: a Gurkha squadron, engineer squadron, a transport regiment. There was a lot of Gurkha soldiers in the British Army at that time. But it was real.
How did you do then? So after that, back to obviously back for class 2 course.
Class 2. The main thing that was helpful for me on a class 2 was, if you remember, the final exercise was on the same day as Live Aid, and we'd been out, I think, for a couple of days, and on Live Aid day we finished the exercise and we were all absolutely munted, and we'd set up some stuff down by the water point, and I got heat exhaustion. I mean, environmental health technician didn't even know what heat exhaustion was at the time. In fact, I would have been the EHA then, not an EHT.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And we went back and did some sort of quiz, and they said, right, you can go away and watch Live Aid. And we got back to the accommodation. I drank about a gallon of water and passed out and woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I never saw any of it. But yeah, class 2 was short and sharp. Certainly not as painful as a class 3. And then after that, I got sent to Colchester, not the MCTC, but the actual HQ Eastern District.
Right. Okay.
And John Shave, may rest in peace, he's recently departed, was my boss there. And John Bass was the sergeant. Colin Glenn was there for a while. And bosses, we had no officer first up, but then we had Jeff Pearson for a while. And then Roy Smart came in for a short time, and then finally Nev Sayer. So they had 3 OCs there in the space of 5 months. I was only there for 5 months. But I just remember lots and lots of TA units and indoor range lead surveys.
Oh, right.
Remember the O2 pump, 2 litre per minute, constant flow through the time weight filters. I must have done about 500 of those in 5 months. It was it was really quite amazing.
And then where did you go after that then? What was after Colchester? Was that
Falklands? I went to the Falklands after that. So I wanted out of Colchester. I wasn't really enjoying it very much. So I went down to see the famous Major Hart for something else. I don't know what it was. And I said to him, I don't want to be in Colchester anymore. He said, well, I can send you to the Falklands. And he was surprised when I said, yes, please do.
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah. And the Falklands were fantastic. First time I met Jim Fletcher.
Yeah.
He was my boss, and there's some stuff I still can't tell you to this day because
still classified.
We both end up in prison.
There's still people suffering as a result of that tour.
Yeah, well, there might be a few Falkland Islanders that look a bit like Jim, but I don't know about that. But and there weren't many, and you know, it's amazing what a sheep can do. But there you go. But yeah, the interesting stuff down there. We used to go to the slaughterhouse once a week because they had a lot of mutton there. And obviously, I wasn't a meat inspector, but Jim showed me the basics of what I had to do, cutting the nodes out and whatnot. Because I used to have high dad doses there years before, high dad cyst, but that had gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd go in the slaughterhouse for a morning on Thursdays, and then quite often we were out on boats. I think you got a slide with me later going between.
Going to bring that up in a bit, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's 2 Polish fishing boats. We used to de-rat them in order for the boats to be able to travel. They had to have a de-ratting certificate every 6 months.
Okay, yeah.
And we used to go on mainly Japanese squid boats, and a few Polish ones as well.
Did they look after you? Did you get hospitality on them?
Yeah, they do. I mean, we don't get hospitality at the time because you're just on and off. We do like 6 a day sometimes, and you're in the outer harbour, so it's pretty choppy at times. You didn't want to be hanging about on a little boat. But the interesting thing was they always gave you a gift, and it was normally Suntory whiskey made in Scotland, Japan. And we had quite a good lump of it in our office by the end of the tour, which is great currency for buying things like wind mirrors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the Falklands was amazing. I quite enjoyed that. I've got to tell you this one story. We got called while we were out doing D-Round. We were on our way back in the Falklands pilot boat to a Russian factory ship where a guy had his foot ripped off.
Ooh, okay.
And we went halfway up the gangplank and were met by the KGB and told to stop there. And they carried this guy down on a stretcher. And they gave me 2 carrier bags. And one was full of fags and vodka. I thought, I like you. And the other one had this foot in it, which had been ripped off the poor guy there. And it was a big old unit, this foot. But you could tell by the associated odor that it hadn't been on him for a while. And they were just hoping you could slap it back on. Anyway, we got him back to the hospital. And we gave him the foot, and the doctor said, "No, they ain't going back on him." I said, "I'll get rid of it in the incinerator." But it was such a big foot, we thought we don't want to waste this. This is a fantastic opportunity. I think we'd probably do time for this now. But anyway, I went to see Fran, the NAFI manageress, and there's a lot of stories about Fran. But I said, "What's the biggest jar you've got?" And I got this massive pickle egg jar, and I bought some like 110 pickled eggs, even though I'd never eat them. And we stuck this bloody foot in the jar. We managed to jam it in there, and we added the formaldehyde. And this thing swelled up, and it was like a size 18 foot. And it became renowned in the Falklands. We used to have helicopters flying into the Red 19 helipad. And, "Can we see the foot?" Got you some beer. And the foot, I think Nev Sayer arrived, and he was a bit dismayed that we had this foot as a trophy. And he wanted us to get rid of it. So we actually gifted it to the Merchant Providence, which was a Royal Merchant Navy ship alongside it. Port Mere Harbour when the new airport was being built. So I'm kind of hoping the foot is still in existence and we're going around the world with Hippo.
It will be there somewhere. It will. It'll have pride of place somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you my first story about Fletcher there. Though we went up and gave his foot across to the Providence, and they entertained us till about 4 o'clock in the morning on rum and drinking and everything else. And then we drove back down to Stanley because that day we had the stretcher marathon over the last 10 objectives of the Falklands Wars. It was to raise money for the stained glass window.
Yeah.
And it was the only marathon I'd ever done, and I was drunk until about mile 8 when I was sobered up. But I managed to get to the end, which was quite good. But yeah, great tour.
Happy days, happy days. That's good. Yeah, well, and again, you had a good team around you as well, didn't you? You had a good, good bunch of people. I think that's half the battle. So then you finished the Falkland Islands. So what did you do there? Is that 6 months, 8 months, a year, or
4 months? 4 months.
4 months.
4 months. And then it was long enough. 4 months was long enough living on coastals. Yeah.
Because what year was that then, Hippo? That's going to be early on, isn't it?
86, start of 86. Right.
So not
86. Yeah.
Not so long after the conflict. So I'm guessing it wasn't salubrious facilities and all the rest.
No, we lived on these big floating coastals, and I think they were pretty average. They were 12 foot long and 6 foot wide, the rooms, and you had two guys as you walked in the front and 2 guys at the end. You know, and those pencil gym lockers for all your equipment. There wasn't long, but hey, you got on with it. Alcohol helped.
As you say, good crack. 4 months is enough. Then you're back to what? Is that back to class 1?
Germany.
Oh, Germany.
Class 1. Yeah, class 1. Did the class 1 course.
Yeah.
Which again was hard. I thought was mentally and physically hard.
It was for me. I nearly failed it. I nearly did. I got to 2. Whatever them tests were called, failures, and I was told.
If you failed 3, you got bidden, didn't you?
Yeah, I got to 2, and I was told in no uncertain terms, you got to keep out the naffy, stop drinking, get your head in your books, or you're going to be doing something else for a living. So,
it worked.
Well, it didn't, because I carried on drinking and going to the nappy, but I just studied more.
You used to have a mnemonic for something which started off with dirty red cars, and it was a way you remember one of your précis, and I can't remember what it was. I wish I could.
It might come back to me.
And you went in the room and said, "Oh, it's easy. I just remember this: dirty red cars park on a Sunday." And so I go, "Huh?" And I was lost immediately, But
Anyway, but we scraped through that, and then you then go off to Germany.
Yeah, I went off to Fordiv from a class 1.
Hereford.
So full corporal in Hereford.
Nice.
Pete Vick was my WO1. I had initially Kev Shaw was there, may he rest in peace. I had Nigel Kerr was there as a sergeant, and John Murray later on turned up. Pete Vick eventually left, and Barney Hayward come in. And busy. I mean, going out doing operational annual reports on units, on health and stuff. I remember one particular one, which was at Dannenberg, which was a signals listening site, and they had a Tory tower there, a listening tower there, and you could climb up and get a certificate, all the usual bullshit for the beer fund. But you could actually see the river there was part of the border of East Germany, and there was 2 East German border guards sat on a blown-up bridge, as at the end of the bridge, sort of stopping people swimming across, which is quite cool. Fordiv was. I played a bit of rugby there. Lots of exercises. You sort of get used to that. But one story from there, one of my commander meds who died about 4 years ago, Jimmy Weir, he was quite famous for being an NBC expert. But he was the driest, funniest man you'd ever meet. And his driver got his leg broken in an accident. So at lastminute.com, I got told that I was driving him to Berlin and driving him around Berlin for a week, which was great. I mean, I stayed at the BMH in transit accommodation, which is the best accommodation I'd ever lived in as a corporal. And he was at RF Gatto in a caravan. And I used to drive this big Peugeot 505 out to pick him up every morning. And we'd go into East Berlin or wherever. Because East Berlin at the time, and this would have been about 86, 87, were still really war ravaged. There was lots of the buildings had lots of damage to them. But they had the Pergamon and the Boda museums here, which were just incredible places. And we went to them quite a lot. And there was also a restaurant, I think it was called the Balmersron Weingarten, and it was where the Stasi put all their best spies, and all the NATO officers went there to get the best food really cheap.
Right.
And first time I had caviar was there with mayonnaise and Chateau de Briand. But the point of this story, Jimmy Ware had his wife Anne, and he had his daughter Patricia, who was about 15, 16, and his younger daughter Joanna. And Joanna was a very petulant 8-year-old at the time. And we'd had this lovely meal in this East German restaurant, something that no East German could probably ever see. And at the end, the guy came up and said, "Would you like some dessert?" And she said, "I want chocolate ice cream." And the guy said, "Well, I'm sorry, we don't have chocolate ice cream, but I can do you vanilla ice cream with a chocolate sauce." And so she went, "Okay." And they brought back this fabulous, it was a fantastic looking piece of ice cream. I thought, I wish I had that. And chocolate sauce. And she just went, "I'm not eating it." And so Jimmy Ware just turned to her without blinking an eye and said, "Joanna, eat your ice cream or I'll nail you to the wall just to prove we're Christians." And she hit the whole thing, and it was never a stop. You know what I mean? I thought, active parenting, good effort. So.
Yeah,
but
that's what's needed.
Yeah.
I
thought it was good. Enjoyed that. And then I asked to go back to Hong Kong, so they sent me to One-Div. And they said, "You can go to Kill Barracks as an instructor or One-Div." I said, "I'll go to One-Div." And Dougie Ross got promoted to sergeant, and I took the corporal slot there. And so it was more of the same, really, similar thing, active edge, military, lots of exercises, Wintech and Royal Army Summer Show, stuff like that.
Yeah, remember it well. Yeah. So we're now talking mid-80s, aren't we? So now
late 80s.
Yes, I recall your time at Verdun. Because I used to come up from Dustin, and a couple of funny memories. Remember, we went up to Hamburg in my old banger, and
just for the culture.
How we didn't get arrested on that.
You had no brakes.
Yeah, that's right. I had no brakes, and then we had no money to get out the car park, and I had to tailgate the car.
Probably BMW.
God, Jesus Christ! And I think I was probably still hungover from the night before. Oh man, what an absolute nightmare! But anyway, but fun, happy days. So that.
And that instant, I remember the guy. It was like a brand new Mercedes, and he was understandably perturbed that he had this shitty old rusty red car right up his arse. And he got out of the car, and I think I just stuck my glazed eye head out the window and said, "Get in the car." And he just thought, "I'm not going to take it all.
Keep moving. Leave us alone, or you will die."
And every time he touched the brake, it went. Yeah. So the other thing is, I used to go down to Dus as well, of course. Do you remember the time we went down to Mons to see Drunken Duncan?
Yeah.
And,
Oh God. Yeah. I'd forgot. Actually, that's really interesting little story, because for whatever reason, it was a hire car, wasn't it? And I think
it was a Volkswagen Golf. Yeah.
I'd come up to see you. So from Dus to your place, long old journey. And then we drove all the way down back through Germany into Belgium to see Bruce. And then on the way back, do you remember we got stopped by the border?
That's right. That was what I talk about. Yeah, by the German police.
Yeah.
They were convinced we were smuggling drugs, weren't they?
Yeah.
Saying things like, "Look, just tell us where they are. It'll be a 15-euro fine." Or Deutsche Mark fine, saying, "Mate, we haven't got any drugs. We're pissheads. We're not drug users." You know what I mean? But
He was trying to work out the fact that why would you go there and go back to Düsseldorf and this and that and the other. So, but anyway, we got away with it in the end. So we'll talk about Drunken Duncan in a bit later, towards the very end, I think. But so that some interesting little times, and of course we had many a fine piss up at your place. I do recall. I'm not going to mention the actual details of this because there might be people eating the breakfast, but I do recall leaving a certain something in one of your rooms.
Yeah, let's not mention that. Yeah.
If I've never apologized, I apologize profusely right this second in public to the world, but I won't give them the details. So sorry about that.
There you go.
And then And then we used to come down. You used to come down to Dusseldorf, and we used to have piss-ups in Dusseldorf. So some happy times. I think you might have saved my life on one occasion when I was going to get murdered by lots of German people for being a drunken twat. And I think your words were, "I think I'll let them beat you up, but I won't let them kill you," or something like that.
That was one of the strangest weekends. I think we started drinking on a Saturday morning about 11, and we eventually got back to RCZ sometime late on the evening of Sunday, and we ended up in some German housing estate at one stage, and they'd never seen an English person, and we thought we were going to die, and they actually loved us, didn't they? We thought we were just two comedic drunken buffoons. We had a great time.
It was.
Yeah,
it did. It turned out really randomly weird, and I recall us walking. This is really bizarre, the things you do when you're younger. And I remember us leaving Carnarvon Barracks, Dusseldorf, and we actually walked into the Hauptstadt. And we stopped at almost every pub. What the hell's that all about? It was fantastic.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was awesome.
Anyway, so that's bringing us, Grinner, now to about the back end. So we're probably getting up to the Gulf now, aren't we?
I've got a puppy trying to eat his way through the door. One sec, I'll just grab it.
Yeah, cool thing, mate. Yeah. Bring him in.
This is Hades, my wife's new puppy.
Ah, lovely.
He's a Rottweiler American Bulldog Collie Cross. He's Buster's son. He's one of 8 progeny because Buster got across a friend's dog up in Nelson. But he's not a bad lad.
Good
he's
man.
Just a bit noisy. Sorry. And we were going on about Germany one day, weren't we?
So we come up to one day. So you've done Hereford, then you did Verden.
Well, we did the Gulf War.
That's what I'm thinking.
I'm just going to close this door again. Sorry.
That's right, mate.
Yeah, we did the Gulf War, which was very interesting.
But I'd like to get your views, if you don't mind, and a lot of people won't know about this, on the beat-up training for the Gulf War. In fact, that to me was absolutely wonderful. It was one of the, you go through it from your perspective, where we were and what we were doing.
Yeah, well, we were in Glen Hughes Barracks in Hona, and basically we had to strip down and pack everything for the deployment, and we had about 2 weeks there in the end, I think. And we had PT every day and battle PT and basically just getting stores and stuff ready. It was quite cool. We were actually in like an officers' mess annex, I think. Our squad.
We got lucky. Yeah, we had that house, didn't we? So it was really nice. And I remember my memories are exactly the same actually of that lovely house. Me, you, Jonah Jones, probably Davey Riggsy as well, all in there. But I do recall it was quite good fun. I remember us being really busy all the time. There's always something to do, wasn't there? If we weren't running, who was that mental jock, Sergeant Major?
Davey Wilson. The most photographed man in the first Gulf War. Every time we went to the latrine, one of us took a photograph of him. Fuck on, Dreenies. What you doing, Dreenies? Hey, what you doing?
Bless him.
Yeah.
Lovely fellow. Great guy. And then we did all that beat.
Close Gribble. Don't snibble Gwibble, double Gwibble. He was there, and we had some. May you rest in peace. But we had some. We had some interesting characters there.
It was a good crack. We used to play a lot of ping pong on the build up, and then off we went, didn't we? And went for a desert holiday for 6 or 7 months.
Do you remember though the trailers? We had a 3/4 ton and a 1/2 ton trailer, and we loaded up a 3/4 ton trailer with everything we needed, and then they said, no, you're only allowed to take the 1/2 ton trailer. And John Rossello was our boss. Obviously, thought that was perfectly okay, except for the fact that you can't fit 2 pints into a 1 pint glass. So we changed the license plates. And it went down. It was Davey Stewart had to get on the hook with it. And
that's right.
I don't believe you make me that. Davey, just shut up. Just stay calm. And apparently the mover got there and he went, this don't look like an 1/2 ton trailer. They said, I don't know. But it got there all right. Nobody died. We were all right.
Exactly.
And then we lived in the hideous warehouse down at Old Jabal for a couple of weeks.
Oh, that was hot and horrible. That was horrendous. I remember that. And I remember we were spraying all them tents as well.
Yeah.
For pesticide. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. should have died by rights. But that was interesting. I tell you what, mate, I couldn't wait to get out of there. I don't think I slept all the time. It was always hot and noisy and horrible.
Because we flogged some beds from the Yanks, didn't we? Next door, we got those iron frame beds.
Yeah.
But even then, you couldn't sleep. You're just soaked in sweat constantly. It's humid and miserable and stinking and flies. And no, it wasn't good.
I couldn't wait to get out of there and then and move up into the desert. That moving into the desert was like a bit of a luxury, actually. It really was. Yeah. But it's where there's probably a few funny things to come out of the Gulf saga, then, isn't there? And I think we were again quite lucky. I still have this memory. I can't get rid of it, Grennan, for all the love and the money. But I have a memory of Simon Riggs washing his bollocks in a bowl in the 12 for 12, and it's ingrained in my brain. I can't remove it, no matter what.
And Dave Stewart putting talcum powder between the cheeks of his arse. I mean, yet there are certain things which are horrific, and then there's Simon washing his junk and Dave put powder in his arse. And if you can survive through them, there's nothing can daunt you.
No, you can live through anything. I think it's worth. There's another little thing that always makes me chuckle. I often tell people in my working man's club about this. Well, those that will listen, most of them have heard about it now. They see me coming in and think, "Oh God, here's that guy who talks about the Gulf War," and they'll bugger off. What about when we got lost in the desert? Then, what's your memory of that?
Yeah, we went to Afar al Batan to make a phone call. In fact, it was probably about today because my brother Ray's birthday's today.
Right. Yeah.
And we went to make a phone call and we were going to ring him up, and we found a call from box. But on the way down there, I said, "Oh, we need to make a note of where this road is." And, I can't get lost here. Pitch, can't get lost here.
Famous last words.
And we went to the shop and bought tea bags and usual shit, didn't we? And then started driving back, and it got dark, and we got completely lost. And we worked out in the end. We went into some TA unit who were not obeying light discipline. We're all pissed in the headquarters tent. Yeah. And we said, "Can you just show us on the map where you are?" And one who was slightly less inebriated than the others did. And so we took a compass bearing and basically walked in front of the Land Rover back towards the hospital. Yeah, towards the med regiment or on field ambulance.
Yeah.
And eventually we came across a little red light, which was the thing. And old Jonah Jones was stomping up and down, terrified that we'd been captured by the Iraqis or something. But no, it was quite a frightening experience. I can remember at one stage we were both getting a bit ratty with each other, and I said, "Right, stop.
Yes,
we're lost. We're a bit nervous. Let's stay calm. Let's just fucking work it out. We'll get there." And it worked. Yeah. And we got there.
It did. But the interesting thing, you hit a really good point about getting a bit edgy, because the reality of the situation was actually very, very dangerous, because there was all the other nationalities in that area, because we were right forward then, weren't we? So there's a lot of other nationalities around. In fact, talking of the Gulf, just bear with me. Gary.
Buster.
He's there in spirit, look, but he hasn't joined with he hasn't put his camera on. Gary, can you hear us? We're just talking about the Gulf.
He'll come in later, maybe. But he was here.
I'll turn him off for the time being. I wanted to bring him in so we can. Well, I wanted to get the Buster story and ways, but we'll leave that for the time being.
We could do 3 hours on the Gulf. It was an amazing time.
So, but that was great fun. Then anyway, so we did that, didn't we? That was a good crack. Loads more stories that we could literally sit here for weeks, but obviously we won't. And then we come back from that. We're back to Germany. I recall a very nice flight home, actually.
That's right.
With the Dutch, was it KLM? We came back to KLM.
Yeah, KLM. Yeah.
Lots of free beer,
free whiskey,
landed. Everyone. Everyone bomb bursted, and then so what was the next chapter for you then after that then, Hippo?
The main thing that springs to mind after that, the last thing in Germany that springs to mind, there's a lot went on, but was the Berlin Wall came down. And I was actually in Berlin about a week before it came down playing rugby. And I was there 2 weeks after it came down on a squash tour, which was a senior NCO's piss up from the mess. And it was it was quite an amazing time actually seeing what happened there, but pretty cool. And I've still got a lump of the Berlin Wall somewhere. So as you do. And then after that, I said, can I go to Hong Kong or Cyprus? So they posted me to Northern Ireland. And I had 3 years in Northern Ireland, nearly 3 years, just short of 3 years.
Oh, right, okay.
It was great. Pat Daniels was the EHI when I got there. Jeff McGowan was there. Dougie George was there at one time. Tab Hunter took over from Pat. And we had a captain whose name escapes me. He was one of the old in boat when I got there. He wasn't a particularly nice fella, but can't remember his name. Anyway. Sorry?
Drainey.
Yeah, Drainey. Yeah. Starts with P, I think his surname. For some reason, I've lost sight of it. But he got replaced by Ian Crowe, who soon became known as the Olympic Flame because he never went out. And we used to go around all the units there, and some of them were, quite scary places. We've got Divis Flats and White Rock and, West Belfast and stuff like that. And one of the things was I was down talking to the Scots Guards down at the Echelon, which is where the British military hospital was, which got blew up a couple of years before and 3 people died. And the Scots Guards quartermaster said, we never see your environmental health officer. I think he was a captain at the time, Captain Crowe. I said, oh, he's a busy man, but I guess. He said, no, I'd really like to have a chat with him. I've met before. I'd like to have him come down there. I said, well, we're doing an inspection of all your posts around Belfast next week. Shall I bring you with me? He said, yeah. So I managed to convince Ian Crowe that he would just do the Echelon at Musgrave Park. And next thing he knows, he's in the back of a Land Rover with me, trundling out to the Divis Flats. And one thing you learn quite quickly if you're going with the infantry in areas like that, if they tell you to do something, you do it, and you just don't argue. And so I think it was a corporal who was in charge of the stick. He said, right, go out, get straight into the flats now. And I was gone. Ian Crowe sat there outside the Land Rover. I've disappeared. He doesn't know what's going on. And thankfully, one of the jocks all went, go in there. And so he was already a little bit wide-eyed when he got into the base of the flats. And then the lift opened with a guy with a bomb flak jacket on, which is like 3 thicknesses of flak jacket. And he says, why has he got that big flak jacket on? I said, well, if somebody throws a bomb and he lies on it and we shoot him. So it wasn't a good day for him. He suffered a bit on that. But he survived it, and he's done the rough stuff. But we went everywhere there. Northern Ireland's a lovely country, and most of the people are fairly decent people. And one of the other things, a little funny story there was there's a TA unit down at Donegal, 76 Squadron Royal Engineers TA. And they were the most visited unit in Northern Ireland by the Environmental Health Team because Bangor and Donegal were the only place where you could get Pooh Bears to like ice cream in the summer. And so Jeff McGowan and I used to constantly go down and get decent ice cream. But
I love it, man.
Yeah, we had good fun.
Good, happy days in Ireland. And then, so what's the next sort of?
Well, I asked to go to Hong Kong or Cyprus, so they posted me to Kiel as an instructor. And I didn't really want to be there, to be honest. But I got married just after I arrived to Anna, and we lived in A1 Kiel Barracks. Shut up. And then I loved the teaching. I really enjoyed that. One of the strange things about working at Kiel was you finally got rid of that horrible feeling in the pit of your stomach when you went through the gates of the camp. Because if you'd only ever been there for training, you knew it was something miserable going to happen,
Yeah, exactly.
But I got rid of that. And I mean, in its own way, I enjoyed it. I was the senior NCO regimental courses, and I taught a class 2 course. And I went to Belize in the middle of that as a bit of a brain rest for a few months, which was cool. So Kiel was all right. I learned a lot.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
Really, really enjoyable. I had a great time there myself. But then after Kiel, where was next? Where did you manage to go?
I asked to go to Cyprus. So they said, no, we're going to promote you to staff sergeant and send you to Scotland. And I said, no, I'm just going to sign off. I was so pissed off. Places I didn't want to go. And so they let me go to Cyprus with the caveat that I wasn't going to get promoted. I'd have to go into sergeant's vacancy, which was fine. And I went to number 4 at Decalia, where I had 23 Turkish Cypriot workers, headed by a guy called Hassan Sakali, who was a fantastic man. I took over from Keith Montague, and we started off in Pergamos camp, which was demolished about 2 months later, and we moved into the main Decalia camp. but it was a wonderful, wonderful time. They as well as actually a nice place, a nice climate. The guys I worked with there, the Turkish Cypriot guys, were phenomenal. They really were decent people.
Yeah.
They had all very old equipment they were using for nitrifying and malifying. So, having come from a training side and being quite keen on pest control, I got rid of all that and got new chemicals. Suddenly, everybody started complaining about the number of cockroaches they were seeing. It was because they're all dying and not just running around their houses anymore. So they'd spray the drains and there was millions of dead cockroaches, you know, and the mosquitoes and whatnot. So I was in Decalia for a couple of years and did a little bit of time over in North Cyprus on the Turkish side, just on holiday and stuff. And then I went down to JSHU in Akrotiri as the deputy OC, as a staff sergeant. The army took the post off the RAF warrant officers. Apparently, the 2 RAF warrant officers were complaining that every 4 years they had to go to Cyprus for 2 years. I mean, it must have been terrible for them. So, and they'd even had the same quarter use, but they complained. They lost it to us. So I was deputy OC there. Steve Newborn was my first OC, and then Bruce Campbell.
Good,
yeah, and it was great. And he'll probably still be there because he'll live forever. The storeman, Akrotiri, is a guy called Afghanos. And he had stuff in his store which had been there since 1950, and it was pristine condition because he maintained it. And nobody had the nerve to tell him to get rid of it. So that was quite cool. But no, that was cool. Enjoyed it there.
Happy days.
Yeah, and then I actually went to Egypt for 14 weeks while I was in Decalia. I went out on an exercise supporting the Americans. It was when the Egyptians decided to go westward rather than eastward. And the Americans were trying to sell them lots of gear. And I had 14 weeks with the Household Cavalry Regiment, 1 LI and 2 Para. And I was the environmental health support. And that was really cool. It was basic field hygiene stuff primarily.
Yeah.
I actually built a couple of Otway pits there, which, you know, it was really useful because the solution was, because if you get a quartermaster involved in how you're going to deal with all the waste, you get 150 porta potties, which is great, but you end up with 150 porta potties full of poo. What are you going to do with them?
Yeah.
And they got a guy with a big sucker truck to come round, and he couldn't suck it out. So we'll have to build an Otway pit and employ a couple of locals to empty into this pit. And it worked really well. And the guy with a sucker truck, he turned up this day, and Viper Vince, who was the regimental quartermaster corporal, because he's Household Cavalry, he said, "Oh, you got to come and meet him." So our staff, so I went across, and there he was, this guy, and he had this white, well, once white smock on, and it had every sort of stain and mark on you can imagine. And he went, "Oh," and he rubbed his hands on it, stuck it in his mouth, and shook my hand. And I thought, this guy's immune to everything. He's probably 164 years old, still alive. So that was that there. But the funny story from that trip, the engineers who I worked with digging herringbone drainage and goodness knows what else, they had a troop of 15 guys there. And the Americans asked them if they could construct some Russian trenching. Russian trenching has lots of corrugated iron. Anyway, these guys went out and they built this amazing trench system, like a completely pucker Russian system. And the Egyptians had to walk around it and said, "Oh, this is cool." And then the Yanks bombed it with their special artillery and showed how effective their artillery was. So the Americans were so impressed that they bought beer for these engineers. And, you know, engineers and beer was always a bit of a risk. But they thought there was a squadron of engineers. So they bought enough for every single man in the squadron to have 6 cans of Stella. So they literally provided them with something like 120 crates of Stella. And there was only 15 of them. And being Royal Engineers, they tried to get rid of it all in one night.
Yeah.
And Lieutenant Coombs, who was a very young lieutenant in charge of them, came down to my tent and said, "I really need your help." And I walked up with him, and there's this completely bollock naked Royal Engineer covered in Lumistick, and he's wagging his badger at the one US Rangers security fence, which is across the way. And you can hear the Yanks on, "Sir, there's a naked luminous man on the wire. Let's just stop taking drugs." And so I went and restored some order.
I love it.
Origin was a bit unconscious, but that was an interesting time.
They're brilliant.
Yeah.
Got to meet the engineers. They're great.
They
look like pissed Homer Simpson then, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they were good value. But that was an interesting tour. It was quite small scale, really. A number of people were all
Yeah.
that's it. And then after Cyprus, I went to London District.
Oh, of course, I forgot about that. I forgot you did that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I went there at the end of '99. It was very end of '99 as the Environmental Health Warrant Officer, London District, and I was the only fully trained guy there. I had John Inglis, who was a Class 2. I had Dave Grenfell, who was a Class 3. And it was actually supposed to be a warrant officer, 2 sergeants, 2 corporals. And so it was a bit stressful, to say the least. And I actually did the last Royal tournament there. And that was very, very hard work. I literally for about 3 weeks was working 20-hour days. It was a bit ridiculous, but we got through it, and you did all the troop in the colour and all the usual state visits and all that, which was really interesting.
Good, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. And I had a really good second commander there. Swanston was there when I first got there, and then a fellow called Tom Pollock, may he rest in peace. He died about 2 years ago.
He's a very good friend of yours, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Great man, really good man, airborne guy.
Retired to Yorkshire or something like that.
No, Sheffield. Yeah, Sheffield is Yorkshire, isn't it? Sheffield. Yeah, really nice guy. So he was a great boss there, and really enjoyed it.
Good man.
Can I tell you one other story about London?
Yeah, cool. Yes, get him in. Yeah.
So I'm sat in Horse Guards on a Friday, and I get the phone call, and it's Schultz Wright, and he was in Northern Ireland at the time, and he said, "Oh, look, we're crossing King's Cross. We're doing some food training. Me and Stewie Adam." I said, "Oh, okay, cool." He said, "Do you want to meet for a beer?" I went, "Yeah, fine. Where do you want to meet?" So I know the Chandos pub on Trafalgar Square. So I said, "I'll meet you there." We arranged the time, let's say 5:30. So we go into the pub, and I don't know if you remember Stewie Adam. He looked like one of the Proclaimers, a little Scottish fellow, a little like ginger hair. And they turn up in the pub, and I'm having my pint, and I've got this little brown paper bag sat on the bar leaner. He went, "What's in the bag?" I said, "Oh, it's Scotch bonnet chilies. A mate of mine's West Indian, and he gets them for me from Brixton Market." He says, "Oh, I love chilies. I eat them like tomatoes." And I said, "Well, you only eat them like tomatoes." So anyway, long story short, we agree on a wager of £5 that he cannot eat one of these chilies like a tomato by stripping it, chewing it, swallowing it, stripping it, chewing it, swallow it, and keep it down for half an hour. So the thing was, he got to pick the chili. So he picked the largest one in there, and it was a yellow one. He obviously thought that wasn't going to be hot. Well, anybody who's eating Scotch bonnet chilies knows that it really doesn't matter. And he ate the first one. "Oh, that's lovely. It's like a tomato." And I'm going, "Oh, yeah, cool." And he started halfway through the second one. He started weeping. It was and I said, "Right, you go downstairs there, go and wash your mouth out, but whatever you do, don't touch your face." So he disappeared down the stairs. And after about 20 minutes, Schultz said, "No, I'm worried about him. I better go and check on him." And he went down, and what he done, he washed his mouth out and then threw the water on his face, and his eyes were like a bulldog's collar. And he's bouncing off the walls of the toilet. "I'm blind, I can't see." And so Schultz went upstairs with a big wad of toilet paper on each eye. And so it was quite amusing. But I got the £5 off him, which was the most important.
You had to, right? That'll learn him. Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward there. What I'm particularly intrigued about or interested about, and I genuinely know nothing about your time there, but then you ended up back in Gulf 2 as well, and I know you've done subsequent tours. So take us through a bit of that then, Grinner.
Okay, so I went to I'm not going to tell stories because we ain't got time. I went to Kosovo from London. That was really interesting, again with Fletcher. And then I went to UKSCG in Germany for my final tour, and we went to the Second Gulf War. And I actually ran the Section 1 Close Support Med Regiment, and I was WO2 at the time. And we had Jim Fletcher was an officer, but he was at the headquarters. I had Johnny English, Richie McLean, Tim Scurry, Chris Ross, Annalisa Charlton, and then later on we had Davey Wilson and Richie, whose name escapes me for the minute, who were TA guys who joined us later on, who were ex-rags. But yeah, it was a real interesting experience, completely different from the first Gulf, in that we got there and pretty much happened right away. It wasn't a massive amount of waiting. I went out on the pre-advance just before Christmas or just after Christmas, and then the team sort of started forming up at the end of January, February. But we deployed early. Yeah, it was interesting, and I'd learned a lot from the first Gulf War, and I also and I still use it now. One thing when I'm talking to people about management is you learn from bad managers as well as good ones. So I made sure that my team were gainfully employed, but not doing shit jobs just because they had nothing else to do, you know. So, and we kept the war diary. We went out. We had a lot going on. We had some interesting times with people getting shot at slaughterhouses after the war had finished, and yeah, and we did some investigation into uranium, which was a trace source, but people thought it was sinister, and yeah, it was a really mixed bag. There was a lot of health risks there. There was, as well as the fact that there was heaps and heaps of discarded ammunition, depleted uranium, and waste oil, and just poor sanitation. The Black Watch in particular had something like 76% of their troops were just non-viable because of DMV, and
Really?
and yeah, so Tim Scurry went down to their main headquarters, which was the old Saddam Torture Center in Basra, and came back, and he got sent away with a flea in his ear by the 2IC. So I went down, and after talking to the commander med and said, I'm going to go and basically explain to this major that he needs to pull his thumb out of his arse. And my commander med said, yeah, crack on. And I left him in no doubt that he needed to sort his shit out, literally. The sort of the failure of management amongst the officers, senior NCOs and whatnot in the regiment was unbelievable. And that when the medical team who were with them said to him, look, guys, you've got to do something about your sanitation, they all thought it'd be funny to start crapping next to the med center. So this was the mentality. It was just childish and stupid. But I went through the place like a dose of salt. So I then told the 2IC and his colonel, actually, Cowan, who I believe is now a general, that you know, I was going to go back and speak to the general himself and tell him what a sack of shit they were, and that's why they weren't useful. And I went back, and General Dawes was the British commander there, and him and the commander med and I sat down, John Davis, and explained to him where we were and what was going on. And then amazingly, we were invited back 3 days later, and the camp was completely organised with proper latrines, and their disease rate dropped off. And it just shows you just got to have a testicular fortitude to get stuck in the sometimes, you know.
Get stuck in, tell them what's what, and pull no punches, because as you said it a minute ago.
But we had a great team. We even went to the water park in Kuwait for a day out. We went back to the R&R camp and dropped our weapons and ammunition in, and stayed in Orlando, and we drove right across the other side of Kuwait where they had like Water World. And we had a day in the water slides, and we came back the next day. We stayed over at the R&R camp at night. We came back the next day, and I said, "Where have you lot been?" Said, "Oh, nowhere." And we'd all had a day at the water park. So you know, you can do stuff like that. It just takes a bit of effort, you know.
You got to do it, mate. You got to get it in while you can. Why not? Yeah.
Well, I must admit, Sue McFarland and Annalisa Charlton had pretty skimpy bikinis on, and some of the Kuwaiti fellas were nearly having heart attacks as they were walking around the water park. But yeah, it was a pretty good time. But yeah, we did that, and then back to Germany for my last tour, UKSCG, and I got promoted to WO1 about 14 months before I finished. So I never got it substantiated. I was an active W1 because I wasn't there for.
No, that's good though.
But
so,
yeah, and then out to New Zealand.
Yeah, which we'll cover in a moment. So that brings us up nicely. Timing wise is really, really good. So if it's all right with you, what I've done, Grinner, is I've just put a few little memories together from over the years, starting back to back end of apprentice college, and then tracking life going forward, that predominantly you, but it involves a bit of me, obviously, because I've been there along the way, on and off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this into play, stick me and you on the side, and we'll just work out our way through, and we'll just share the chat here. I'm not sure where or who took this photo, but I'm not sure if it's our passing out parade in '84.
I think it was, and we haven't changed, have we? Really? I mean,
Not at all. I was just actually thinking that myself. We haven't changed one little bit. You're still a twat, and I'm still a twat. There is no, there's no getting away from that. But no, happy days. And if we look at who can you see in there? Got Big Ted. Look at the front there.
Ted at the front. You've got Paul Brown at the front there. You've got that must be Tony Johnson in the middle. I'd have thought. He's only
little Geordie Johnson. I now live
around in front of me. Ian's actually up. He lives up in Plympton, up in near Wellington at the moment. Ian McKenzie. So I'm still in touch with him. There's a few criminals there, but no, it's great. Right.
Happy days, Apprentice College. That was good crack.
It was. And then class 3.
Going through our class 3 course. Sadly, a number of those no longer with us. Some in not such good condition, but So again, it just goes to show you just got to get on with do what you do. Absolutely. Have a crack along the way. Be nice to people, and you can't go far wrong. That's me and you. Me and you, Circle. I'm trying to see if I had that funny little moustache that I used to have. Skabor. But I can't see it on there. And there's Ray Moody. Ray Moody's at the front, and he's the guy who actually said to me, "What the hell's that on your top lip?" And I went, "It's the growth, sir." Anyway, you let me keep it. Over to you. What we got here?
Islands, so I think it was 85, 86 I was there. That was an amazing tour. The hospital was down a place called the Canash, which was about 3 or 4 miles from Port Stanley. Jim Fletcher and I were the environmental health team with Ian Armstrong, and then Nev Sayer came as an officer, and Ian Hunter took over from Jim, and Tony Brunskill took over from me actually. But I took over from Dougie George, and
oh God, isn't he?
He left me to burn. The first night I was there, you jet lagged, and so they get you on the Terps in the Red 19 club, and I was bollocks asleep on the table in the room, and he just left me there when all the sirens went on and goes down because he couldn't move me. But I survived, and then
you got through it.
But no, that was a really interesting tour of Falklands. It was pretty
good.
Cool place to learn.
Big gang of you. So you, Jim, Ian Armstrong. He was on on the first episode. It was lovely to chat to Ian, and I noticed right in the middle there. Look. Bless him, R.I.P. Sticks Taylor's there as well, by the way.
Sticks, that's right. Sticks was there. And I remember the sergeant major there was brilliant. I can't remember his name, unfortunately, but he was a brilliant man. Very, very impressive man. Really knew how to organise people. You got Nige Partington there with his red beret on.
Of course,
Colonel Nige. And then Tony, the Remy guy next to him, who was a Remy REMT guy. Joe A. Lee over on the right-hand side next to Nev Sayer.
I was
down from Ned Saylor. Yeah, he's there.
Wow, awesome.
So there's Bob Sterica at the back next to me, Big Bad Bob.
Yes.
And the guy to the other side of me was a driver. He was RCT, and he was like a left-wing militant in the army, but he was a great guy, really, really good guy. And next to him, you got Megs McGarren, who was in Bratt College with us.
Yeah.
And Megs and I had a little side business where I'd take him up to the offal pit by the slaughterhouse and hold him by his feet, and he'd scrape the maggots out of the rotting flesh to sell to the people who went fly fishing. He got 2 kids, I got 8. I mean, it was just the way it worked. But
he's just lucky to be alive.
I wouldn't have let him die. He's too valuable. But we had a half-ton air portable Land Rover there, which had cow horns on the front.
Are you going to see it in a minute?
Yeah. Oh, is it there? Is it? Oh, right.
I'll move on with. I'm going to show you that. Who was this that you met?
Oh, that sheep was 18, and it was a liar as well, an absolute liar. That was at Kelly's Garden. I went down there to sort the water out. That sheep had real issues because every regiment that came in died
after you'd finished with it.
Colours. And at that stage, it was mainly blue and yellow for the Queen's Regiment. But previously it had been the Gurkhas, so it had gone from green. So it was this blue and yellow sheep with a tinge of green underneath it. And it was called Dolly, And it would eat your fags out of your hands while you were smoking and stuff. It was not a mentally well animal, bless it. But Kelly's Garden was an interesting spot. Yeah,
that is it. That's fantastic. This goes back to when you were doing your de-ratting.
That's right. So that's going from one Polish trawler to another. And so, you know, Jim being airborne and all that, so you can go first. And trying to go across that ladder, nobody tried to go across that ladder without another stabilizing rope. And eventually they came back one and we managed to get across there. But
that is
and he managed to capture the rip in my lightweight, showing my tighty whities underneath. So
oh yeah, I missed that. Showing your goodies, excellent.
Exactly. Yeah,
I think this might be a mixture here, isn't it?
Chris Callum, that would have been one div. Yeah, one div.
Yeah.
So you got Dave Stacey in the bottom there.
Yeah,
I can't remember the Navy's name off the top of my head. He was a dental corps guy, airborne guy. Dave Natley, of course. Bob Allett was the chief clerk, but behind Dave Natley, me, and then the corporal there. He was a really good guy. He fell asleep in the sun on exercise, and his head expanded to 3 times its normal size, and he was quite ill. But he got better, and his skin came off him like leather, and he looked about 11 underneath. It was like the ultimate chemical peel. And then you've got obviously Chris Cunningham, may he rest in peace. Doing our Craig Twins bit when I was at Kiel, and then me, Starkey, and Fingers Finley in the Red Jackets pub in Camborne.
Is that where that is, Camborne?
Yeah, that was about 7 years ago when I went back last time to UK, and and I met up with Starkey down there, and I had Alicia and baby Evie at the time, and Rob came down to meet us, and we had quite an interesting evening there. It was good times.
Yeah, I took over from him in Belize. Yeah, I was introduced to the claw as well. That's that one then, and then we'll just buzz through these a few little snaps from our time in the Gulf. So that was a good crack in the Gulf. I really enjoyed that.
I mean, we managed to have quite a lot of influence on a lot of stuff there. I mean, the entire field ambulance got their camp beds from us, the American camp beds.
We had a prolific deal. We had we had a lot of deals going on, and we had a barter shop, and we were getting
tins of jam,
food, yank beds. It was a good time. It was really good fun. And you know what? Other than looking at Simon Riggs's bollocks and Davy Stewart powering his arse, I can't think of any bad memories. And even the getting lost in the desert. And
Des was there, and so we try to remember that. But there you go. Probably online now. He wasn't doing much. Yeah, but there you go.
Anyway, more of the this. I always love this Padre picture because he was a nice little fella, and I always say, that's just before we actually went over the bridge, and there's Hippo edging his bets, getting in with the Padre before
we had a vicar. We had a vicar each side. I think we had the Catholic Padre in front of us and the Protestant Padre behind us. So in a way, we could focus the shelling onto our vehicle and not him. But scrubbing Dixies, and then on the captured Iraqi thing, and the one day of rain we had in the 4 months we were there or whatever. Exactly. Great memories.
Davies, they're talking of Scottish people washing. There's Davy Stewart, look, and blessing his Jeff. He obviously snuffed it now, and then
Davey, and
there's Simon.
Riggsy.
And I can look. I'm just look. He's got that look on his face that says, "You're going to look at my bollocks," and you never get. Where's this, mate?
That's the second goal. No, hold on, man. That might be Kosovo actually.
Okay.
No, second goal for, I think. I can't remember. Fletcher and I did so many up tours together. No, that is Kosovo. Yeah, that's Kosovo. Yeah, that was
you and Jim there, obviously, as well.
Yeah,
brilliant stuff. And then just coming to the final. So where you are now in New Zealand?
Well, that's where I was. Yeah, that's Rakaya.
Rakaya.
I moved twice since then, but
yeah. So I remember that well. So a lot of people may not know that you were instrumental in me moving out to New Zealand when I came over in the whenever it was 2011, in fact, just after the earthquakes, the major earthquakes that munted Christchurch, and that's your house in Mackay, which you kindly rented to me.
That's right. At mates rates.
It was at mates rates. And that was a wonderful time. I really had a great time there. That's when remember when you caught crabs?
That's right, yeah. They were edible though, so it wasn't too bad. That was it. I'm glad to see I've lost a bit of weight since then, to be honest. That would have been about 9 years ago, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, no, great life. And I was working in Tasman then, up in Nelson.
Right.
And I moved from there in December last year down to Southland. So
Happy days.
no, great.
And then we've got you and your good lady and one of your little
No,
babas.
that's not my good lady. That's my mother-in-law. That's
Is
that's
that,
Alicia's
God,
mum. She's actually younger than me. I've got a mother-in-law who's younger than me, but
he sneaks
and
in
that's
there.
Evie. That's little Evie.
Oh,
Bless her heart. Yeah, when she was
wow.
born, the cone head.
That-
But yeah,
Bless her.
and she's
That
now
is
7.5. Oh,
Wow.
so
And then there's I've just thrown a few in. The ones with you in the ear, look on the bottom right, with you and Jam. That was on the outskirts of Kuwait
That's
doing the
right.
poisons testing after the Gulf War. And then just a few old faces. People can look at these.
Yeah.
But Sean London.
Do you remember the story of the underpants, which Jeff McGowan put on your head?
I'm not quite sure what happened.
So I think it was our Class 1 course, and we'd all go on a naffy and drink far too much. And as a sign of fidelity to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, we'd all stick our underpants on her painting in the naffy, and they all disappeared one day. And what it was, I think McGowan had picked them up in a box. So when we had our end of Class 1 course, we had our parents up and everything else for the last thing. He went round and reissued our underwear to us from off the Queen.
Oh, that's nice of him.
Yeah. Strange. Yeah, there you go.
There's just a few of Bruce there. I always like to chuck. This is the final one, by the way. Like to chuck a few in of old Brucey boy there. And we're gonna do we're gonna do we'll do a little thing about Bruce in March, in fact, around the time of his birthday. So I think that probably brings us just over the hour there, Grinlad.
Right, mate. Yep.
So that's been really interesting, and why I was really chuffed when you agreed to come on. I mean, I knew a lot of that, but there's stuff I didn't know as well. You know,
you forget stuff, don't you?
You do, and it's not until you start thinking of, we're going to have this chat, start going through your memories or your pictures and that your things come back to you. So it's been really fascinating, and I really appreciate it. So I wish you all the best as always, mate. And same to your give all of our best really to Alicia and the Nippers.
And if anybody,
but thank you. This will go now.
Yeah, if anybody watching, wants to come out to New Zealand, please look me up. I'll be happy to put you up and look after you, and show you around this incredible country. It's a wonderful place. But thank you, Dick. It's been really good, fun talking.
No.
And if you get a gap in the future, we'll fill out some of the stories a bit more.
We can do that, mate. Absolutely. Round 2. Look after yourself, my friend. Take good care. It's been a pleasure.
Care, mate. And you.